Federal government gives ECOWAS states conditions before it would reopen Nigeria's border. Court of Appeal removes House Majority Leader Alhassan Adodogwa. In international news, US begins formal withdrawal from Paris Climate Agreement. And in sport, Minister of Youth and Sports Sunday Dare pledges sponsorship for Nigeria's Women Football League. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigerian government is standing firm on its decision to keep its border closed. Now it has given conditions of a tripartite meeting with ECOWAS member states before it would reopen the border. This decision was announced to newsmen by Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Onyema on Monday in Abuja after an inter-ministerial meeting that preceded an anti-smuggling committee meeting among Nigeria, the Republic of Benin, and Niger. Onyema said the president's desire is for the issues to be addressed as quickly as possible and the member countries of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, must respect the rules of origin. He said the tripartite meeting must be held in Nigeria within the next 2 months. Nigeria demands that each country's head of foreign affairs, interior, finance, the customs, immigration, and the NIA attend the meeting. Nigeria also demands that goods entering any ECOWAS country from a non-ECOWAS nation must retain its original packaging and should not be modified in any way. It also requires that those goods should be escorted directly from the port when they are destined for Nigeria. The Nigerian government also says member states must certify the rules of origin on goods produced in ECOWAS countries. Nigeria is also demanding that ECOWAS citizens entering Nigeria through land borders must present themselves at recognized entry points and must present recognized travel documents. The All Progressives Congress (APC) is still in shock over the appeal court's removal of House Majority Leader Alhassan Adodogwa, who represents Tudunwada Dogwa Federal Constituency of Kaduna State. The appeal court in Kaduna, presided over by Justice Oludotun Adefokwe Okoji, has ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to conduct a fresh election in the 2 local governments where the election took place. It was only a few days ago when the appeal court hit Abdulmumin Jibril with a similar verdict. Although on a private European visit, President Muhammadu Buhari took time out on Monday in London to sign the amended Deep Offshore Act. During the signing, the president commended the National Assembly for its cooperation. He said this is a landmark moment for Nigeria because the amended bill, as he put it, will generate $500 million in additional revenue for the country. In a statement later, the president said signing the bill means Nigeria will not receive its fair, rightful and equitable share of income from its own natural resources for the first time since 2003. The president further said in the statement, 200 million Nigerians will start to receive a fair return on the surplus of the country's resources. He said the increased income will pay for new hospitals, schools, infrastructure and jobs. 5 states have been identified as potential hotbeds for flooding. The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency says those states, Anambra, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo State and Rivers should be on red alert for imminent flooding. NIHSA Director General Clement Nze told journalists at a news conference in Abuja on Monday in Abuja. The briefing was necessitated by the current devastating flooding incidents ravaging parts of the country. Nze said current flooding incidents were caused by the opening of floodgates of the Lagdo Dam last month by Cameroonian authorities who managed it. He said the Cameroonians have closed the dam's vein on the last day of October. Nze said the unannounced release of water by Cameroonian authorities will imminently have an adverse effect on Nigeria. The DG also said both Kainji and Jeba dams on River Niger in Lokoja are still discharging excess water downstream. He said that has contributed to the rising level of the River Niger in Lokoja. Nze said the state should be on red alert and should immediately identify the communities bordering the water of Niger and plan for timely evacuation to safe and higher ground in the event of flooding. The Senate has confirmed 15 board nominees for the Niger Delta Development Commission. Committee Chairman Senator Peter Nwabuchi said the nominees were screened and found capable to serve on the board. Senate Minority Leader Eyinaya Baribe warned the Senate against illegality. He said the nominee representing Delta State appears to be the same person who was sworn in as the chairman of the steering committee. The confirmed nominees include Dr. Pius Ojubo, Chairman, Bernard Okumagba, MD, Engineer Otobon Indem, Executive Director, and Maxwell Oko, Executive Director. One nominee, Dr. Joy Yimebe, was not confirmed. She failed to appear for screening. Senate President Ahmed Lawan advised the members to redeem the bad image of the commission. Ekiti State First Lady B.C. Fayemi is seeking the fight to those who describe as unrepentant female genital mutilators in the state. She said the state government will not hesitate to arrest them. She condemned the practice, which she said had caused much sexual damage to women, affecting them with diseases that destroy body sexual nerve cells. She said genital mutilation has caused marital crisis in many homes. Mrs. Fayemi decried the increasing rate of teenage pregnancies in the society. She said Governor Kaide Fayemi's Operation Keep Girls in School has outlawed expulsion of ladies who get pregnant while in school. Mrs. Fayemi made this comment on Tuesday during an advocacy tour and empowerment program for women in Ekiti West, Efon, Ijero, and Idosi local government areas of the state. Coming up, African stories. 2 more killed in clashes between police and protesters in Guinea. And later, international news. US begins formal withdrawal from Paris Climate Agreement.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Carrie just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. In African stories, 2 more persons have been killed in Guinea on Monday as protesters and police clashed during a funeral procession for those killed in earlier protests. Demonstrators were out over suspected efforts by President Alpha Conde to extend his tenure. Police used tear gas and hot water cannons when violence broke out in the capital, Conakry, during a procession to mark the burial of 11 persons killed in October protests. Police spokesman Moya Kaba said on state television some were wounded and there was loss of lives. Opposition leader Selou Delian Diallo told journalists the victims died from live bullets. Organizers of the protest, Rocking the Nation, a coalition of politicians and activists, are opposed to a constitutional change that could allow 81-year-old President Conde to run for a 3rd term. He had asked his government last month to look into drafting a new constitution. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump has spoken with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Monday, supporting negotiations among Egypt, Ethiopia and the Sudan over a giant hydroelectric dam on Ethiopia's Blue Nile. Egypt's foreign minister said last week the Trump administration had invited the 3 countries to a meeting this week in Washington to try to break the deadlock in the talks. Egypt fears the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam could restrict already scarce supplies of water from the Nile, on which it is almost entirely dependent. Ethiopia says the dam is crucial to its economic development. White House spokesman Jude Devry says in a statement, President Trump has expressed support for the ongoing negotiations to reach a collaborative agreement on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The Kenya-Uganda oil pipeline project, jointly developed by the Kenyan and Uganda governments, was to replace road tankers as the primary means of transporting oil products from Kenya to Uganda. Uganda stopped using the pipeline and switched to alternatives in Tanzania because of pipeline fees. Now, Kenya has reduced those fees by half. Michael Baleke has the details.
Kenyan authorities say the value of their petroleum exports dropped 43% year on year. They made $21 million in the first 6 months of 2018, but that fell $12 million during the January to June period this year. And they say their own pipeline tariffs are to blame. They have therefore slashed those tariffs from $60 per 1,000 liters to about $31. The idea is to win back importers from the landlocked countries like Uganda, who abandoned the Kenyan route over high prices and shifted to Tanzania.
The pipeline tariffs for Western Kenya have been very expensive. They have not been competitive compared to what other oil companies like in the Dar es Salaam they are charging.
Oil companies say they pay on average $80 to bring oil from Dar es Salaam by road, but pay a $60 tariff when using the pipeline to Western Kenya and another $35 on trucks to buying countries. They believe the move by Kenya is good news for both dealers and consumers in the region.
The supply in this market is going to be a lot. OMCs will be going to Western Kenya, they bring products. Also, the consumers in this market are going to enjoy, because now, once the supply will increase, but the demand is still at the same level. So once supply increase, demand is at the same level, prices will automatically have to come down.
The new tariffs are yet to be announced. The Kenyan government says this is a 3-year revision that could see rates drop further to $29 in 2021.
The Tanzania-Zambia Railway Authority, or TAZARA, has been a lifeline for landlocked Zambia, creating innumerable job opportunities for the two countries as the line snakes nearly 2,000 kilometers from Dar es Salaam to the corporate town of Kapirimposhi in Zambia. China has offered help to revamp the decades-old railway line to better serve Tanzania and Zambian citizens. Daniel Kijo reports.
For 44 years, this railway line has been an important link between Dar es Salaam in Tanzania and Kapirimposhi in Zambia. It was built in the early 1970s by China as a gift to both countries. And according to the railway, the single-track line that runs 1,860 kilometers has served more than 50 million people and transported over 28 million tons of cargo. But its usage has declined amid rising competition from road and air transport. The railway operator wants to bring back the line to its glory days.
For us to move to the levels where we want to be, we need to do what President John Magufuli wants us to do: recapitalize the organization. Give it sufficient funds for it to purchase enough locomotives, enough wagons, put in the signaling system so that it is working.
Transport ministers from Zambia and Tanzania are finalizing an agreement to make changes to the Tanzania-Zambia Railway Authority Act, which governs its operations. The management hopes that new policies will make sure that at least 30% of the country's bulk cargo is transported by rail. The leaders of the two states say the Railway Board will complete a business plan by March 2020. At the moment, the board is making a loss. To break even, the line will need to carry 600,000 tons of freight annually. TAZARA management says currently the line is transporting over 24,000 tons annually using only 8 locomotives. Ramadhani Ndunda has been using the train since 1975. He says the train used to have more frequent trips, something he wishes to see again.
Improvements need to be done because back in 1975, when this transport started, we used to be able to travel thrice a week.
According to TAZARA, 35 cargo wagons can transport the equivalent of 50 trucks, making it a cheaper and faster way of transporting bulk cargo.
As TAZARA, we should be paying dividends to both Zambia and Tanzania. We should be paying dividends. We should not be receiving money from government. We should be paying dividends. We can do it.
Both countries are hoping that the revamp of this important trade route will strengthen not only their political ties but also their economies.
When we return, international news. President Trump begins formal withdrawal from Paris Climate Agreement. And later, sports. Minister of Youth and Sports Sunday Dare pledges sponsorship for Nigeria's Women Football League. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. President Trump has begun the first formal withdrawal from the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. The U.S., one of the world's biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions, will become the only country to leave the pact. Trump says this decision would boost U.S. oil, gas and coal industries. For more than 2 years, Trump has talked about pulling the United States out of the landmark Paris Climate Agreement. In the Paris Agreement, nearly 200 countries set their own national targets for reducing or controlling pollution of heat-trapping gases. A French President Emmanuel Macron says he's disappointed at President Donald Trump for going ahead with the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. Macron says cooperation between Europe and China on reducing climate warming emissions will be decisive. The French president says it is more disappointing at a time scientists and many world governments are urging rapid action to avoid the worst impact of global warming. The 2015 Paris Climate Agreement encourages countries to make stronger pledges if they are able to do so. Both French and Chinese leaders have reaffirmed their commitment to the Paris Agreement. Macron and Xi are due to hold a formal meeting in Beijing on Wednesday. China aims to bring emissions to a peak by around 2030 and raise the share of non-fossil fuels in its total energy mix to 20% by the end of the next decade, up from 15% in 2020. The United States is the first country to say it will withdraw from the deal, but 10 other countries have failed to ratify it, including Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. Labour MP and Deputy Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle has been elected as the new Commons Speaker after John Bercow stepped down. Sir Lindsay has pledged to be neutral in his new post. The Speaker oversees parliamentary debates, deciding who can speak and choosing amendments, and has historically been a low-profile, politically impartial figure. Hoyle served as Deputy Speaker for the past 9 years and beat 7 other candidates to attain his new post. Because of the requirements that speakers be politically impartial, Sir Lindsay will have to resign from the Labour Party in order to carry out his new role. Bercow stood down last week after an eventual and frequently controversial decade in the Speaker's chair. His resignation as MP for Buckingham was officially confirmed on Monday. Greek police found 41 migrants, mostly Afghans, hiding in a refrigerated truck at a motorway in northern Greece on Monday. The discovery came 10 days after 39 bodies, all believed to be Vietnamese migrants, were discovered in the back of a refrigerated truck near London. 2 persons have been charged in Britain and 8 in Vietnam over the deaths. The refrigeration system in the truck where the migrants were found in northern Greece had not been turned on, and none of the migrants was injured, though some asked for medical assistance. Greece is currently struggling with the biggest resurgence in arrivals of migrants and refugees since 2015, when more than 1 million crossed into Europe from Turkey via Greece. At least 34,000 asylum seekers and refugees are being held in overcrowded camps on the Asian islands under conditions which human rights groups have slammed as appalling. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has announced there will be no negotiations on any level with U.S. officials. The remarks are aimed at refuting speculations of a possible summit between Donald Trump and Hassan Rouhani on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly next week. Ayatollah said this on Sunday during a speech to mark the 40th anniversary of the hostage crisis at the United States former embassy in Tehran. It says those who see negotiations with the U.S. as the solution to every problem are certainly mistaken. Tehran has consistently said it would only hold talks if the U.S. lifted sanctions imposed since Trump pulled out of a 2015 nuclear deal. Up next, sports. Minister of Youth and Sports Sunday Dare pledges sponsorship for Nigeria's Women Football League. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. This is NN News Sport. President of the Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, Amaju Pinnick, and 4 other members of the board have been cleared and acquitted of corruption charges. A federal high court in Abuja, presided over by Justice Ijoma Ojukwu, has ruled that since the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice have written to withdraw the charges filed by the disbanded Special Presidential and Investigation Panel, the accused persons had been acquitted of all charges, including those by EFCC and ICPC. Federation officials have been under investigation by EFCC and ICPC in an alleged $8.5 million fraud related to sponsorship money meant for the development of football. A Minister of Youth and Sports, Sunday Dare, has promised to assist the Nigeria Women's Football League to gain sponsorship for the Nigeria Women's Premier League. He said this while addressing journalists after the 2018-2019 season NWPL Super 4 final won by Rivers Angels after a 1-0 triumph over Conference Queens on Sunday. Dare commended the skills displayed by the women's footballers, adding that the sport ministry was dedicated to the development of women's football in the country.